Back to the show, Coach Mangini is here. One of his favorite topics, firing a coordinator. Shane Waldron out after 9 games. That saw Caleb start slow, which is normal, you're a rookie. Then he got hot, that was great. And then he regressed to one of the worst quarterbacks in the league by passer rating, which turned out to be a fireable offense. Nick, how much of this is on Caleb?
Well, listen, Caleb needs to be better, and you hate that trajectory. The early struggle's fine, the ascent great, and then the whole team, falling apart post Hail Mary and Caleb's play falling off a cliff, really starting with that Hail Mary game. He had the good couple drives at the end, and then really bottoming out these 2 weeks. He needs to be better. I don't think Shane Waldron was doing a great job, and I also think the narrative surrounding Caleb is flatly wrong. Like this idea that, listen, Jaden has played better than all the rookie quarterbacks by a mile. He was, I think up until 2 weeks ago, a very legitimate front of the envelope MVP, not rookie of the year, MVP candidate. I think that's cooled a bit, and Lamar has ascended further. But this idea that Caleb's been the worst of the starters is just not true. We can show you the other quarterbacks and what they've done, and what you'll see is they're almost identical. The records are about identical. Drake hasn't played, but extrapolate it.
Okay, let's pause this real fast. I'm going to let the rest of this clip play, but I saw this and listen. We got to point out that Caleb Williams was supposed to go to a significantly better situation with better weapons, better everything. Now, I understand, I even was on the record saying this, just because we thought that was going to be the case doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be considered the case as the season unfolds. But what situation is Drake May going into? He's going into a terrible situation, significantly worse than whatever Caleb Williams had with the Chicago Bears. And Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, people said that team was going to win like 5 or 6 wins this season, okay? And again, he's not stacked with weapons either, necessarily. So again, it has to be graded on a curve. Not to mention, Caleb Williams was the #1 overall pick. With Nick Wright himself saying that the Chicago Bears were going to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, so when you compare them like this and just say, oh no, they've been similar and they've been comparable, they have not. They just have not, considering the pieces around Caleb, the expectations around Caleb, and where he was drafted. That's what happens when you get drafted #1 overall. The expectations are higher than if you're drafted, even if you're just 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. #1 is #1 for a reason. That's why Caleb Williams got all the attention going into from the offseason into this season compared to Drake May and Bo Nix. Ask Nick Wright, did you think that Drake May and the Patriots were going to go to the Super Bowl? Did you think Denver Broncos and Bo Nix were going to go to the Super Bowl? No. But you said Caleb Williams was, and said that Caleb Williams is already a top 5, top 10 quarterback before he ever even got into the league. So that's why even if his numbers were identical to Drake May and Bo Nix, that would still be a bad thing. And again, if this is the first video you're watching me with regards to Bo Nix or with regards to Caleb Williams, I'm a supporter of Caleb Williams. I was closer to Nick Wright than I was from the people who are now trying to rip Caleb Williams. Like, I thought that the Chicago Bears were going to get to the playoffs and that Caleb Williams was going to really fight for the Rookie of the Year with Jaden Daniels for that matter. So Caleb Williams and the Bears are doing worse than even I thought. But again, we can't just explain it away and say, hey, this isn't actually that bad. Look at these other quarterbacks. No. That's not how this works. That is not how this works. If we want to reach the conclusion, hey, we thought these weapons were going to be significantly better, we thought this team was going to be significantly better, and that proved not to be the case, I understand that, but that's not the whole story here. And to just now try to use that as kind of like a scapegoat, I don't think that's fair, personally. But hey, that's just me.
Yards per game, almost identical. The passer ratings, almost identical. The team points per game, almost identical. Now, we can say Caleb has better weapons, agreed. I think a worse offensive line than Bo, but probably a better one than New England. But this week it was, so I just don't think it's accurate to say Caleb is playing the worst of the rookies, because then you'd have to throw out the 3 games he played, which was the best of those 3 rookies. But he had the highest expectations. Here is what I will put, Coach, to me, on the coaching staff. During this 3-game terrible stretch, how many interceptions has Caleb Williams thrown? The answer is 0. PFF does those turnover-worthy plays thing. You know how many he has? 0. You know how many big-time throws he has in this 3-game awful stretch? 1. So what does that tell me? He's being coached to be too cautious. They are taking the Caleb Williams out of Caleb Williams. They're turning him, they was like, don't make a mistake. And you see it in the pocket. It's why the times he has a clean pocket, he's not letting it rip. It is, if my rookie quarterback's going to be bad, I want it to be Peyton Manning type of bad. 28 picks, 26 touchdowns, boom. That's who he is. And so you can't ask this player to be uber conservative and then be shocked when he's gun shy. Now, he needs to overcome that, but that to me, he should never be the lowest interception rate of anyone in the league type of guy. That's not who he's going to be at his best, or certainly not at his worst. So, yes, it's on him. I also think making the coordinator change is good. And I also don't think the idea that Bo Nix and Drake May have been great and he's been terrible is accurate to the data or the film.
I think it is accurate because when you watch it, he's looked the worst out of the 4.
Has he also looked the best at his best?
No, Jaden looks.
No, I'm talking about
he
the
had
other
a few
3.
nice games, which flies in the face of your last. Like you were searching for some, which I get. That's your guy. Searching for a positive. That's why he's cautious. They're the same coaches. I'm sure they were telling him the same thing during that little 3-game stretch against the worst defenses in the league when he had the great passer rating. Like, I think he just holds the ball too long because he held the ball too long in college. And he could make things happen with his legs that he can't make happen in the NFL. And the stats, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. Stats don't always tell the story. We can throw up stats. Here's some that show the 3 guys. Well, Jaden obviously
been the
is
best
the best.
by a mile.
But passer rating, they're better.
I just want to show you this so you guys can see, right? That's not coaching necessarily, right? That's not what this is. This isn't someone being, just shy now. That kind of statement is pretty crazy.
You say they're close, but yeah, they're close, but they're better. Completion percentage, not really that close. Drake May's much better than Caleb. And TD percentage, he's down there with Bo Nix. But the thing is, and you glossed over it, you used to always say this with Brock Purdy. You threw it all on, he's got great supporting cast. Caleb has an amazing supporting cast. He's got 3 number 1 receivers. 3 number 1 receivers. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze is going to be a number 1 receiver. He's got a really good tight end. DeAndre Swift is a Pro Bowl running back. The offensive line has been shaky, no doubt, but the defense is great. The dude isn't getting it done, and I'm not saying he never will, but I'm saying he is to blame for a lot of this, so is the coaching staff, but he is not playing. Heck, Bo Nix has his team in position to make the playoffs. A team that was bad last year. If the season ended today, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix would be in the freaking playoffs.
The Broncos had a better record than the Bears last year.
They still were bad, but do they have the supporting cast that Caleb has in Chicago?
No, but the Broncos are in the playoff hunt because they have the second best defense in football right now.
The Bears got a really good defense too.
The Bears, I think, had a really good defense that appears to have quit post Hail Mary. That's just from watching the games. That's what it looks like to me. The defense has given up post Hail Mary because they think the coach blamed it on the players.
So they're what? They're 4-5 now, right?
Yeah.
They're 4-5, and the Broncos
we're
are 5-5.
Hail Mary away from being 5-4 with a winning record, and that Hail Mary had nothing to do with Caleb. It had nothing to do with Shane Waldron. So Shane gets fired because Caleb's playing terrible. But he doesn't get a lot of credit when Caleb's playing well. So now we're talking about the rookie quarterbacks, and they're all pretty bad, and they're all going through struggles because that's what happens typically with rookie quarterbacks. You get some outliers like Jaden, some outliers like CJ. You get that, but typically they play badly. So this is an issue because of expectations, okay? And it's the expectations that externally were put on them. It's the expectations that the organization put on him, and it's the expectations that Caleb put on himself. So pull up the
If we bring up this private text to a punter, I'm going to lose. This is the only thing the guy said.
Just hold on a second. Lose your mind all you want, but you talk like this coming
He
into
didn't talk like this. He
Hold on.
sent a friend a text who then revealed it.
Well, guess what? When you do those things in a
wanted
locker
the
room
ownership
full of
of the
men,
team, didn't he?
with a locker
No,
room
that's not true.
His dad.
with a locker room full of accomplished men, and you're a boy walking into that locker room who's given a ton of money and expectations, all the things that come with being the number one pick, and you talk like this
To
and
another rookie,
it doesn't-
privately.
It's not private. I'm
Well,
seeing it.
we
How
saw
private
him
is
blow
it?
off CJ.
So there it is. Hey, we're going
He's
to
a
bring
bit
that.
smug.
We're bringing
He's a
that
bit
up
smug.
right next. So let's see what CJ said. Here's CJ's quote. Maybe you should listen to what CJ said. Remember how he blew him off and CJ was big broing him? Maybe you should listen, Caleb, to what the veterans say. Maybe you should.
He's not a veteran. He's played 10 more games than Caleb.
Okay.
He's
maybe
much
you should-
better than
maybe,
Caleb, though.
Maybe you should listen to a relative veteran who's had a high level of success and listen to the things he says. But no, we're gonna fire Shane because of course it can't be any of Caleb's fault or the GM's fault
I've
or
never
the
seen a rookie
organization's
quarterback
fault.
be blamed for someone being fired.
Okay. This is actually pretty fantastic to see this kind of go off the rails at this point. I mean, whew, where do we even want to go from here with this one? Because this is just a classic. Nick now trying to say that the Broncos were actually a better team last year. Then why did you not think that the Broncos were going to compete for the playoffs and win a playoff game? I can understand if you still think that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to make the Super Bowl. I understand that. But you didn't even have the Broncos remotely on the radar. And you had the Chicago Bears going to the Super Bowl, beating the Detroit Lions, beating the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders, the Green Bay Packers, whoever else. And now you're going to act like, well, wait a second. Hey, Bo Nix went into a pretty good situation. Nick Wright also said that Caleb Williams, that the NFL was going to be easy for him. It was going to be easier for him in the NFL than college. Those were his exact words. So he has no right to be so defensive when someone like Mangini and Brew are calling him out. And again, you want to fire Shane Waldron? And Travis O'Shea did this perfectly, and Greg Cosell for that matter. Travis O'Shea is a subscriber. Travis O'Shea is a subscriber. Greg Cosell is on the herd. And they talked about that big game where Caleb balled out against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Go watch that game. That was on Shane Waldron. He called a beautiful game. He had beautiful design plays. These no-read throws. No read throws means you're pretty much telling the quarterback exactly what to do in that situation. It doesn't have to go through any progressions. It's no read. It's you know where you're going. His big play where he threw the ball, I forget exactly what it was, but it was to his tight end, and I think it ended up being a touchdown, or it went right down to like the 1 yard line or whatever. A beautiful play. Again, that was all Shane Waldron. It was a beautiful play design and call by Shane Waldron. So if we want to put all the blame, all the praise on Caleb, but then when he fails, put it on Shane Waldron, again, that's not being fair. And that's why I kept saying they're both to blame. They're both to blame unless Caleb Williams proves to just be a really bad quarterback. Then Shane Waldron's like, I don't know what you want me to do, man. I'm a great coordinator, but like you can go bring me Joe Schmo in the NFL. I can't make him into a quarterback. What do you want me to do? And that's why I've consistently blamed everyone. I've been very consistent. Caleb needs to play better. The coaching needs to play better. I think that Shane Waldron wasn't doing enough to get him easier moments. But also, like, now we're saying, oh, it's all on coaching. That's why Caleb's not throwing the ball now. He's too shy. Like, that's now on Shane Waldron. Like, it's funny that he's saying, I've never heard a rookie quarterback be blamed for the firing of a coach. But then you're blaming the coaching staff or the coordinator for why he's playing poorly. You understand? That's asymmetrical. Doesn't really make a lot of sense at all. It really doesn't. Now, to be fair, I had questions about Shane Waldron going into this season. So that's why, like, I both agree with Nick, but I also completely disagree because there's too much fire, there's too much heat with all of this. There's too much confidence in the conclusion. That's what I take issue with more than anything. People are trying to conclude that this is 100% Caleb or 100% not Caleb. And the truth is it's 100% everyone. I don't really think that's that controversial. Go watch the games. But we can't just make these excuses for Caleb holding on to the ball for too long or being inaccurate when he has a clean pocket. Because now he's like, oh, he's shy, he's not pushing the ball down the field. When they tried to push the ball down the field, he was awful. He was throwing interceptions and had terrible success. Terrible success. So now they're like, okay, let's pull this back a little bit. And then they had success. And then they went against the Commanders. And let's not use the Hail Mary as the way that this all broke. Because Caleb Williams did not play good in that game before the Hail Mary. And again, we can look at just stats all we want. And here's how we know that you can't just look at stats, and neither does Nick. Because Patrick Mahomes' stats this season are less than stellar. And yet he still says he's playing like the best quarterback. And situationally, and this, that, and the third. Which is honestly a valid argument. I don't 100% agree with it, but it is a legitimate, valid argument. But then when we want to prove that Caleb Williams is not playing as poorly as some of these other quarterbacks, we use the stats as a reference point, and it's like, and that's why Brew was like, look at, dude, the eye test. Drake May looks more comfortable right now than Caleb Williams. Bo Nix is actually stepping up and going toe-to-toe and outplaying Patrick Mahomes on the road with what should be a clear inferior team. Do you think Caleb Williams is doing that? Because he's not even doing that against the New England Patriots. So you can throw the stats out what you want. And again, I can't say this enough. I am a supporter of Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams will be a great quarterback in the NFL. So this is not a whole rant about like, Caleb Williams isn't that good, get over it. I'm not saying that at all. Not even close. But I did call out Caleb's personality, and not because of the fingernails. I don't care about any of that stuff, man. That stuff means nothing to me. Truly nothing. And I got news for you. It doesn't mean anything to the majority of the players either. Because I guarantee you those players also do plenty of weird stuff. Believe me. I've been around enough big, strong men to know that things get weird. But my problem was with that message that he sent. And some of the other things that he said. Saying, I don't get afraid. I don't get afraid. I'm not scared. Okay, sure. If you can't admit that you get scared, then you probably can't admit that you need help. You probably struggle to admit that you don't understand a concept. Or that you were confused in a certain read or a certain throw. If you can't admit a fundamental aspect of human nature to get nervous and scared and experience fear, how are you going to admit, hey, I was a little confused on this one play. What do you want me to do in this situation? I was actually kind of confused. When the defense is doing this, should I go right or what do you want me to? You struggle with that. I mean, it's what they teach you when you're in elementary school. There's no dumb questions. And they say that, and obviously there's plenty of dumb questions, but they say that because they want you to have the room to be able to say, I don't know. I say I don't know all the time. I took that lesson to heart. Because I used to try to fake it. And actually the one guy, oh man, I forget his name. From The Wire, he's unfortunately passed away. He's got like a really raspy voice. I think his name was like Chalky in Boardwalk Empire. He talked about one of his first jobs, and it might have been on The Wire. I'm not sure. I truly forget his name. Rest in peace. But he was like, I first got to set, and I just kept pretending like I knew what I was doing. And it was awful. And it wasn't until that I admitted that I didn't know and that I needed help and support and I asked questions, I felt better, I could improve, I could grow. And then obviously he became a legitimate, well-respected actor in some of the biggest series in the history of television. That is a fundamental problem with someone like Caleb. And you should be able to take insight from anyone. Whether it's CJ Stroud, who only has 10 more games than you, whether it's someone who's 15 years old. I learn lessons from my little niece and nephew all the time, and I think it's safe to say I know way more than them. And yet they still have insight. They still have experience. You have to admit what you know and what you don't know. You have to admit when you're comfortable and uncomfortable. You have to be honest. And so, yeah, maybe that was just a tongue-in-cheek joke with the punter. Maybe it really was. And now it's kind of got out of control. Because I could easily see myself saying that to one of my friends. If I got drafted to the NFL and I was like, hey, man, we're not going to punt. Like, it could just be more of a fun joke. But the problem is when you put it in context with everything else, then that's when things kind of start to get a little bit weird. And that was my question. Going into this season, I said the biggest question mark around Caleb is how will he face adversity? And boy, did I get ripped for that one. And again, I'll say this again. I believe in Caleb Williams. I have made endless videos, well over 100, defending him, praising him, giving my expectations of how good they will be this year. And I'm still defending him now. But we have to have the honest discussion about it all. We have to say when he is to blame and when he is to not. At this point of the season, now you're firing coordinators and all this. This season's a disaster. No question about it. This season is a disaster. And now everything else that moves forward, I actually don't blame him at all. I will blame. Thinks he has some blame in the beginning of the season up until this point, but now everything is just a free fall. And I will not blame a rookie quarterback to be able to manage this. He's now going to have a new voice. He now has to field all these questions. And I said this was going to happen. I thought it was going to be all about Eberflus. I talked about this. I'll never be able to find the video. But I said this going into the season. The problem is going in with this situation, if they don't win and they don't succeed early on in the season, they're going to now start asking Caleb, hey, is Eberflus going to be fired? Or how do you feel about your coach? This, that. And I'm like, that's a lot to ask a rookie quarterback. He's figuring out how to play quarterback in the NFL, and he now has to field these questions. That's a lot. Now, it wasn't Eberflus. It was the coordinator, and now everything's a mess. And I do not expect a rookie quarterback who's not even playing that well right now in Chicago, massive media, massive expectations. The fans are booing him. I do not expect him to be able to just thrive and survive with flying colors. I do not expect it. And I do not blame him for not being able to either. It will be wildly impressive if he can, but he deserves no extra negative or no extra, tugs at him if he can't. Because it's just too much. This is too much of a mess. This is too much of a mess at this point. And so like I said in previous videos, and I guess I'll have to just keep saying it for the next few weeks until, really until the end of the season. At this point, this season has been punted. It's a disaster. They messed it up. Blame the Chicago Bears franchise as a whole. They messed this whole thing up. This whole thing is a mess. An absolute mess. And any of the things that happen to Caleb from this point on, no blame. I don't care if he has a 10 interception game. I don't even blame him anymore at this point. And I think next season, 2025, will be Caleb's rookie year. That'll be his first season as an NFL quarterback. And you know what? Things like this is why you sit a quarterback that first year. This is why you sit a quarterback. You have the rookie quarterback learn how to be an NFL professional. You let him go through an entire season with truly zero expectations. Zero expectations. That's how you get a much more smoother transition of power for a quarterback. When you think about it, what do we say? We say that the quarterback position is the most important position in all of sports. That's why it's the highest paid. You have to do the most. They prepare the most, study the most. And yet we think if it's really that important, and if the vast majority of quarterbacks spectacularly fail and don't even last in the NFL, let alone become starters, we really think that we're supposed to just throw a quarterback in there and just say, hey, if you're great, go have it? Do we do that with surgeons and lawyers and anything else? A great world-renowned surgeon, doesn't he have to go to med school? And then they have residency and fellowships? The majority of their education is them just watching and being shoulder to shoulder with someone who's already done a million surgeries. You have them do what they call the monkey work. The really, 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 really easy stuff. Essentially equivalent of saying, hey, Caleb's a rookie. We're just going to have him hand the ball off for the first, 8 games. Because we got to slow play this. But yet we think we can just throw these rookie quarterbacks into it and just say, there you go. And if you succeed, that's great. If you don't, you're not good. It really doesn't make sense. It really, really doesn't make sense. We don't expect that from anyone in any profession. But I guess in quarterback play, we do. So I don't know why. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. This was a long video. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? Who do you think is to blame? Are you with Mangini on this one? Nick Wright on this one? Brew, me, whoever? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.